Welcome to Vectorworks Fundamentals 2014. We believe the art of design drives the entire creative process, and to that end, we provide a software solution that'll help you find your balance. This year, you'll find a host of improvements that'll help you and your team maximize your workflow and balance your individual creativity with accurate design information. And now here's something to get excited about. For 2014, OpenGL has experienced a number of improvements and will no doubt become your direct modeling rendering mode of choice. This feature isn't really a single new object or tool, rather it's more of a collection of changes that'll let you remain in 3D OpenGL views during modeling and drafting. Let's take a look at some of the improvements. First, notice how when you select an object, you get an entire bounding box surrounding the object, not just a rectangular shape. Next, once you've selected an object and move it, notice how the entire scene does not need to be re-rendered, only the object that was relocated. Thanks to our new occlusion control, you'll no longer accidentally snap to corner vertices beyond an object. Notice how I can select an object from anywhere within the selection box and not just by the edge. If you have RenderWorks, let's look at OpenGL when Use Shadows has been selected. You can see how the shadows are more accurate and are more fluid as they move across the model. Here we'll switch from one layer to another while the layer control is set to gray others. Once again, notice how the rendering mode stays in OpenGL with no need to go to wireframe. In this segment, the image has been rendered in a rendering style other than OpenGL. However, once the walkthrough tool has been chosen, the rendering mode changes and stays in OpenGL and does not revert to wireframe, resulting in accurate and clear indications of what you're seeing and doing. And just to reinforce that, we'll use the Clip Cube tool and change the viewing angle of this element. Notice how the view stays in OpenGL. Once again, no more reverting to wireframe. And in this segment, we'll take a look at how objects appear when the Draw Edges option is chosen. Oh yeah, much cleaner and much smoother. I like that. I'd also like to add one more important benefit. With this graphic improvement, direct modeling is not only fun, but all the operations are smooth and accurate. And finally, to wrap up, check out the new functionality of the X-ray select mode. We'll use the B key to explore wireframe skeletons while navigating in OpenGL. And before I close this segment, don't forget to navigate using one of these good-looking gadgets. It just works. Let's look at the walkthrough tool. It's been given a couple of new modes as well as a smoother running interface due to our faster interactive display, giving you the ability to more precisely navigate around and through your model. The mode bar now shows Walk mode, Look Around mode, and Elevator mode. Let's look at Elevator mode first. To start, we'll enter a height and zoom out a bit. Then we'll enter additional values to determine some other stopping points, and now, using the elevator mode, we can move smoothly up and down in 3D space. Now we'll switch to the look around mode and do just that. Look at the project from a fixed height. These new modes are sure to make setting up custom saved views smooth and natural. In a continuing effort to help you embrace the concept of designing in 3D, we now have a couple of new additions to the direct modeling family of tools. The first, Taper Face. Let's start with a simple cube, and from the 3D modeling tool set, we'll select Taper Face. First, we'll select a planar face as the base reference. Then, select the face you want to modify. The new widget will preview the direction. Then simply drag and release. For a precise angle, you can input values into the heads-up display. Taper face can be used to widen the base of solids and make tops narrow, and lets you get very creative when modifying solid subtractions. In its simplest form, the tool will help you explore new design ideas by deforming solid objects. Let's take a look at this massing model and explore some design alternatives. With the Tangent Faces mode, you can quickly and directly pitch all the rooftops and explore different design alternatives for this building, something not easily accomplished previously. Continuing in the same vein of direct modeling, we have a twist for you, the Twist Face tool. Many examples exist in the landscape and in entertainment and lighting design, as well as architecture. Starting with a solid object, it's simply a matter of selecting a base reference face and then letting the protractor widget give you visual clues regarding the amount of twist placed on an object. You can also twist multiple objects. Notice the heads-up display giving you the opportunity to input a specific number of degrees of twist. So now, go get wrapped up in your work. This is truly direct modeling taken to the next level. In this group, let's look at some dimensioning improvements. The first is dimensioning support for objects in groups, symbols, and plugins. Let's use this museum project as an example. This door is a plug-in object. I can now directly dimension individual components within the plug-in object. And now when selecting this group of objects, once again, I can directly dimension an individual object without entering the group. And finally, objects such as symbols can also be directly dimensioned. Now let's look at text offset support for non-aligned dimensions. Let's switch to another floor plan and zoom into this angled wall. Notice that after adding an unconstrained dimension, the text can be relocated at will. This may seem like a small improvement, but it's one that was highly wished for by you, the users. Moving on to consolidate dimension and chain dimension objects. Here's another great addition to the dimension tool. First, in the object info palette, we no longer make the distinction between dimension and chain dimension. It's now all just dimension. The improved functionality begins when right-clicking over a dimension. This lets you add or subtract dimensions. Here's another dimension improvement. Model space measurements for sheet layer viewports. Take a look at this sheet layer. Plenty of viewports and all at different scales. Notice how the tape measure tool recognizes the scale of the viewport. Here the entire length of the building reads 51 meters. And this room over here reads about 5 meters. The handicap stall in this bathroom is properly sized. And finally, let's look at this large-scale detail. The tape measure tool is now an intelligent tool, making reviewing drawings much easier. In this segment, we've grouped several new features and improvements into the category of improved efficiency. Let's take a look. For previewing changes and additions to your model, we have 3 items. First, the mirror tool. It now has a preview option similar to the rotate tool. So now for 2014, when mirroring an object in both 2D and 3D, the selected geometry's mirror image will be ghosted in and displayed in real time, so you can see exactly what the results will be with accuracy and precision. Next, let's look at some improvements when formatting text. In previous versions, you had to know what font to use or go through a bit of trial and error. This year, however, the dialog box for formatting text has been expanded to include a preview showing both font size and style. No more guessing or trying to recall the font style you need. And in this segment, we'll look at how the settings for opacity have been improved. Now, rather than guessing and having to return to the dialog again and again to adjust opacity, simply use the slider or type in a numeric value, then hit the preview button to see your changes. Like it? Great. Just hit OK and you're done. In this group, we'll look at some improvements to our drafting and editing capabilities. Let's first check out the Reshape tool. There's a new mode in the mode bar. Let's see how we can use it. We'll take a side of this hexagon and stretch it out. Notice how the object retains its shape as the one side is being pulled out. Now let's look at a simple rectangle. Just draw out the shape, and simply by selecting a corner, you can transform the rectangle into a polygon. Next, we'll look at setting a datum point. Have you ever needed to know how far away a certain point is from another object and then draw an element starting from that point? Well, now it's simply a matter of setting a datum and, using the heads-up display, either dynamically dragging out a start point or enter exact dimensions, and you're ready to go. The Trim tool now has a new mode that allows selected cutting of objects in both 2 and 3D. Let's see how it behaves in 2D. Here, only some of the objects have been selected. You'll see as the cut line is drawn that only the objects that were highlighted are affected. Now let's look at 3D. We'll select some of the objects now when the cut line is drawn and switch to a 3D view. You'll see that once again, only those objects that were selected have been affected. Perfect. Our last category for improved efficiency is all about create, view, and modify. And our first feature will show you just that. Here's how it works. You no longer have to create your new class or layer from the organization palette. Now you can do it directly from the object information palette. Create a new class, new layer, or even a new sheet. This functionality is also available from the pull-down list and nearly everywhere in Vectorworks 2014, speeding up your current drafting and modeling workflow. The next item is cropped image types. And yes, you're hearing this correctly. Cropping imported images is now possible in 2014. Let me show you how it works. Not long ago I had to create a presentation board, but this piece here needed some editing before it could be placed in the foreground. Let's look at what I did. The process was simple. First, from my desktop, I imported a PNG image. Notice how the image has a black background that, for my purposes, needed to be removed. I'll zoom in and right-click on the image. Now I'll activate the new menu, Edit Crop. Yes, just like a regular viewport. Now I'll just draw a polygonal shape around what I want to keep. When finished, just exit the edit mode and voila, background is gone. And all while staying completely inside Vectorworks. And lastly, to keep the file containing your cropped images as small as possible, you have the ability to click this button, which will automatically discard the geometry that's outside of the crop. We know that every Vectorworks designer at some point has the need to present his or her work. Typically, if you're explaining construction documents or renderings, these are done on sheet layers, and your drawing views are based on viewports. Let's say for a moment you're exploring the possibility of moving a small and simple object, such as an electrical outlet, in the kitchen. The result? All your viewports are out of date, and the red stripes warn you about updating all viewports. A quick alternate solution? Just hit the New Preferences button and all your out-of-date borders go away, letting you continue with your presentation. Nice. And the last feature is about polygon control. We've made two notable changes to the way you interact with and use objects with polygonal geometry: polylines, polygons, NURBS curves, and more. First, you requested precise control of the location of each vertex of a polygon, and now you have it. A simple right-click on any vertex will allow you to select that vertex in the Object Info palette. letting you control its location in either 2D or 3D space, and then setting it exactly where you want. Another request was the ability to smooth or simplify imported 2D geometry. We did that and more. Let's have a look. There are two methods for smoothing geometry: maximum deviation and minimum distance. One of the two will give you the control you need to clean up or modify your polygons. This will be particularly useful when dealing with a digital site model. Oftentimes the contours have way too many control points that can now be quickly and elegantly smoothed and cleaned up. In this segment, we've grouped some more new features and improvements into the category Greater File Interoperability. Let's take a look. The first one involves referencing external DWG, DXF, and DWF files. Vectorworks is now capable of directly referencing DWG, DXF, and DWF files. This means that instead of importing or using the shuttle file method, you can now choose to reference a file. Let's look at how it's done. We'll start with a couple of files to explain how direct referencing works. Let's say I have a 2D mechanical drawing created in another CAD application, and I need to bring it into my working Vectorworks file. Now we're in the main Vectorworks BIM model. We'll run the import command, but pay attention to this small checkbox. This makes direct referencing possible. Now we have a referenced 2D ventilation proposal showing in place. Like always, updates and changes are bound to happen. In this case, our external proposal evolved into a 3D model. We'll run the same process. Once the changes are agreed upon, I'll replace the original reference file with the new one. Now, back in our main Vectorworks project, if you open the Organization palette and under the References tab, you'll see our references are out of date. By hitting the Update button, our latest 3D proposal is now up to date. This direct workflow is a huge step forward for those who need to ensure team collaboration. The next feature involves complex line type export. Last year in Vectorworks 2013, we introduced line types. Now in Vectorworks 2014, these line types can be exported to DWG format as true DXF DWG line types. Simply uncheck complex line types as blocks in the DWG export dialog to ensure this feature. With that box unchecked, Vectorworks will create the appropriate SHX files that will be placed alongside the DWG after the export completes. The next feature is support for named true colors. Vectorworks 2014 now includes support for named true colors in both the import and export of DWG files. Any named colors included in the DWG during import will be imported as named Vectorworks colors. This will occur automatically for imports. On the export side, checking the box for Use True Colors must be checked in order for these types of colors to be exported properly. The next item is the Publish command. In the final stages of a project, no matter what your profession, you'll need to publish drawing sets for your project's various stakeholders and collaborators. Therefore, we've created the new Publish command. This new option will let you produce customized file sets in a number of common formats right from a single dialog box. When using the Publish command, you can pick and choose one or more sheets, save views, or even other Vectorworks files, as well as the export formats including PDF, DWG, DWF, and print. This means that from a single location you can set up and even save a set of files to be produced, then click OK and go on about your business as Vectorworks produces all the necessary files to your specified location. And lastly, export Parasolid and 3DS. For those of you who need to export in Parasolid XT and 3DS format, we have a new option. In previous versions, we only exported from active layers. but for 2014, we'll be able to export all visible objects from all layers. It's a matter of checking the box. Simple as that. Scripting with Vectorworks embedded VectorScript programming language is a feature some of our users have employed to create custom plugins. However, in an effort to offer a broader world of custom scripting, you can now utilize the Python 3 scripting language and its thousands of libraries to efficiently develop scripts for Vectorworks. Python is known as a modern and popular scripting language with a large base of students, academics, and professionals around the world who learn how to program with this easily accessible open source code. Imagine if you could develop research projects in your school, develop tools that take advantage of operating system settings, connect your georeference drawings to web map services, push the boundaries of your workflows by incorporating online resources, dynamically connect IFC data to your building information models from the cloud, execute automatic tasks such as email notifications, or create your own customized tools and commands. The possibilities are limitless. Here's a new tool that's been added to RenderWorks' repertoire. The Brick Shader lets you create a realistic representation of bricks, panels, or tiles as a texture. While this feature existed in previous versions, you're now able to add a secondary brick texture, as well as control when and where it appears, separate from the main texture. Not only that, but you now have complete control over the size and appearance of what would be the grout lines. You can select either a combination of colors or a texture for the fill. Whether you alternate row and column styles or apply a more randomized look, you'll gain hours of time in your workflow because now you don't have to tediously model each and every brick. This change also means you can take a picture of bricks that already exist in the real world and then create a much more realistic brick texture that'll match an existing wall. Finally, here's an example of many of the brick and masonry textures that ship with RenderWorks 2014. So enjoy! It's now possible to apply a displacement map in addition to a simple bump map to a RenderWorks texture. While at first this may appear to be the same as a regular bump map, displacement mapping actually alters the existing geometry to create a more realistic surface effect. This is most obvious where you can see the displacement map is capable of creating geometry that casts shadows even upon itself, allowing you to create very detailed textures that can be applied to a wide range of objects. This type of shader can greatly improve the overall look of renderings that contain tiles, bricks, water, and more. Not only can displacement textures emulate different materials and surfaces, but entire city blocks as well, all while keeping base geometry to a minimum. And let's not forget to have a look at what's new for our Vectorworks Service Select members. To start, in many cases you'll find that there's no need to create 3D models from scratch. We have new content for you. From several varieties of wall sections and details that you can use and modify, to several new arrowway textures, to many more types and styles of furniture. Check it out. We've also included a number of video clips, including some really informative tutorials and tips and tricks, focusing on items like drawing organization, georeferencing, lighting techniques, the issue manager, worksheets, custom title blocks, and more. So come on over and see what's new. So for this year, we invite you to capture that perfect balance between design and technology with Vectorworks 2014.